Hey, I'd like to show you how to do a different shading technique. This time I'm going to make some highlights on the same project. You can already see I made some shadows on this project by using the knife tool. Going to use a completely different technique to do some highlights. Maybe some of the lighting effects that you'd see if you have a light source coming from sort of above and to the left of this particular image. So this is a different technique. Let's go look at my layers. And I can see that I have this color layer. I chopped that one up a little bit with the knife tool. And I have all the rest of my layers locked. And I think that I can do most of this without making those layers invisible. So let's try it. I'm working on either on this color layer, or I should make a layer on top of it. So this layer is still underneath the line layer. So I have all of this line work available still to see over the top of what I'll do, and I have all of the detail stuff still visible over the top. For this, I think I'll use the pencil tool. I'll set up my pencil tool with no fill and with a white stroke, making some highlights, and I'll turn up my stroke width a little bit. And let's see just a preview of what this looks like. Hey, that might work. One thing I'll change for my stroke is I think I'll give it a round cap. And you can see this stroke now has kind of little circles at the ends of it. So everything that I don't want to mess up is locked. Still using my pencil tool. I'm going to find a place where I think there's going to be a little bit of a highlight. I'll make this on the top of this character's head. And it looks pretty blocky and goofy right now, but I'm going to do a couple of things to make it work. First thing I think I'll do on this one is simplify it a little bit. You may or may not have to do this. And I think that'll be good enough to try this out. I have a path with a stroke on it right now. And here's the main part of this trick. We're going to start to add effects to our project, or to one of these elements in the project. And the first effect that I think will work with this technique is called blur. And I'll go specifically to Gaussian blur. Now I have some controls over this. Helps to preview it first. And you can see that it's starting to add some fuzziness to this. If I go in and make it pretty fuzzy, it looks like it's pretty subtle right now. There's a little bit of tonal variation that this little bit of blurry white stuff over the top of all of my other solid colors is changing things up a little bit. You can still go in and edit the path and maybe turn that just a little bit. So I edited my path just a little bit, and it's adding a little bit of three-dimensionality to this by having that value change, and it's pretty subtle. There's that. I think it looks pretty good on this little piece. I think that it makes a lot more sense once you do a fair amount of work like this. I have that head. It looks pretty good. I want to show you what you might have to do if you want to change the effect that you already added to one of your elements. You're going to find, if you just have it selected and you go back up to effect and you go hit blur, Gaussian blur again, that it's going to give you a really hard time. It's a really bad idea to put one effect on top of the same effect, because your computer has to think about and render this whole effect and then go do it again over the top of the same thing. And if you start to layer the same effect on itself, your computer will eventually just refuse to do it. It's not because your computer's being slow, it's because it's doing math to the same math that it already did and going over the top of the same thing over again. So here's what you need to do. I have this object selected. It has the effect. I need to go find this little control right here. It's called Appearance. If I click on it, it shows all of the information about that particular element. So right now it says it has a 7-point stroke that's white, it has no fill. It has one instance of Gaussian blur on it, which is an effect. If I wanted to go delete that effect, I could select it and hit delete selected item. But what I really want to do is just edit it a little bit. So I double clicked it, and here I can go change some of the parameters on that back to something else. Now I think it worked a lot better with a fair amount of blur, maybe like that, but I'll hit OK. Way better than adding the same effect over and over again. Now, guess what? I already did all this work for the entire project. So instead of showing this layer 8 that I just made, I think what I'll do is go get out my highlights layer that I already made before, and I'll put it up in front of one of my other layers. And there I go. Did most of that work for the entire project already?
Wow.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Hey, thank you. One thing that you'll find sometimes is that one of your maybe highlight effects goes in front of something else. So you can see that this little white blur highlight on the leg is overlapping in front of this character's arm. So I can see that the leg is made up of this one shape that actually exists behind the arm. If you get something like that, what you'll probably have to do is work it out in the layers. You can see that this is that particular element. If I go put that one inside my color layer, I can go back into my color layer and put it behind the right thing, and it might look a lot better. Let's see. Needs to be at least behind that. Does that look better? So there you go. Can't see the white up in front of the arm. Pretty good? Good enough. Hey, that's another technique you can use. Thanks for listening.